Have you ever been in a position where you want to display a large amount of text on screen? Well, of course, you could use the widget tree using things like text, rich text, column, and so on, but unfortunately, it's not very scalable and it takes a long time. So what I'd recommend is checking out the Flutter Markdown package. This allows us to write Markdown and then display it inside of our widget tree just as usual. It looks like a standard widget, and of course, it renders Markdown. So you can find the blog post for this video over at developer.school. I'll put the link inside of the description. And if we just scroll down, we can get an idea of what it is we're going to be building in this video. So if we scroll down at the bottom, we can see we have some Markdown here. We've got a title, we have some italics, we have some code, and so on. Let's jump right in by creating a new Flutter project inside of the terminal, or you can skip this step and of course add it to your current Flutter project. So firstly, we are going to run flutter create, and this project will be called my_markdown. Once that has completed, we can cd into that directory and open it up inside of VS Code. So firstly, start by heading on over to pubspec.yaml, and we'll scroll down to the dependencies, and then we'll add flutter_markdown. Once we hit save, it should go ahead and get the Flutter Markdown package. But of course, if not, you'll have to manually run pub-get. Next up, we need a Markdown file to render. So we'll go ahead and create an assets directory. And inside of assets, we'll simply have a file called hello.md. And inside of hello.md, we'll put some Markdown. So at the moment, it doesn't really matter what we put inside of this file. It just essentially needs to be some Markdown that we can display on screen for this video. So I've just put some random text, a bit of code, and so on. Next up, we'll go over to our library. We'll make a new page inside of the pages folder. We'll call this our home page. And this will be a stateless widget. We don't really need to do anything with our state inside of this widget other than load something inside of Future Builder, which doesn't require a set state. So we'll make a home page. We'll import material.dart. And then inside of here, we'll have a scaffold. That scaffold will have an @ bar with the title text of Flutter Markdown. And the body itself will be a future builder. And the reason it's going to be a future builder is because we're simply getting something from our assets, or alternatively, would be getting something from the network. So the future itself will be the root bundle, and that comes from services.dart.loadString. And as you can see, that gives us a future of string. So we can, of course, say assets/hello.md. And of course, this won't work unless we do tell Flutter about our assets. So we'll go back to the pubspec.yaml for now, and we'll enable the assets of hello.md like so. So by adding that into our pubspec.yaml before we start our application, it will, of course, allow us to get that from the root bundle. So now we've established the future, the Markdown content that we want. Now we need to create the builder. Now the builder takes the build context and our async snapshot of what will be a string. We'll call that snapshot, and we can, if nothing else, return a center, which has a child of a circular progress indicator. That's simply just going to display the circular progress indicator if we haven't loaded the Markdown. But if we do have a snapshot with some data, using snapshot.hasData, we want to return a Markdown. We'll need to import the Markdown from Flutter Markdown. And that Markdown will have the data of snapshot.data. We can now go over to main.dart. We can remove the majority of comments and everything else from this page. And instead, we want to import the home page that we just created. When we do so, we can hit run and debug and open this up either on the web, Android, or iOS. So here we have our Markdown project opened up inside of Chrome. So this is a Flutter web application, and you can see that our Markdown renders as intended. Now, if we do a refresh here, we can see that we have a very small, tiny display of that circular progress indicator. But if we make this a future Markdown.delayed, and we set the duration of this to be 1 second as an example, we can now see that we have that progress indicator for a second before displaying the markdown. This is why we added this center with the indicator just below the has data, like so. We aren't simply limited to displaying Markdown, we can also style it appropriately. So we can add a style sheet as an example. If we added a Markdown style sheet, we could customize things such as the H1. We could give that a text style of color, colors.blue, and the font size of 40. When we save that, of course, we should be able to see the Markdown rendered with that blue title and font size of 40. So here in this video, we looked at how to display Markdown content inside of our Flutter applications for Android, iOS, and web. If you need to display consistently styled text, and of course text that can be changed easily by pretty much anyone in your team, I'd definitely recommend using Markdown. Thanks a lot for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you'd like to stay updated with more Flutter content, and of course, let me know what you'd like to see next inside of the comments.